This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Real Talkers, we're grateful to have you here for a very special edition of the show. Let me get this out of the way. It is on our radar that Nunavut MP Lori Idlud has crossed the floor from the NDP to the Liberals, that the federal government is now at 170 seats, and that with 3 by-elections looming in about a month from now, the Prime Minister is even closer to a majority government. But we're not talking about that today. We may talk Canadian politics today to a certain degree. We can't help ourselves. It's Real Talk after all. That's what we do. But today's episode, we've been promising you for quite some time, is a very important conversation with 3 Iranian-Canadians from our community right here in our home city of Edmonton. This is a conversation, of course, that will focus on the war in Iran, the war that the world is watching. But for a lot of Canadians that are seeing those headlines right now, the war in Iran can feel complicated. It can feel distant, maybe a little hard to follow, right? We see reports about strikes on military targets, escalating tensions, global powers trying to prevent a wider conflict. Of course, news breaks around mines allegedly being left in major shipping routes. Global oil supply, market movements is on people's minds. But for millions around the world, including tens of thousands of people right here in Canada, the story isn't abstract. It's a very personal story. And today, we're going to be speaking in a moment with Reza Akbari, with Pegah Salari, and Nooran Ostadeian. Each of them has deep ties to Iran. Each of them has friends or family who may still be there. And like many in the Iranian diaspora, speaking publicly can come with real risks for people that they really care about. For them and many others, the biggest fear right now isn't just the bombs that are being dropped on military targets. It's what might happen if the regime survives this crisis. So today we're not just talking about geopolitics. We're talking about human lives and human rights and what responsibilities come in moments like this for nations like Canada. We're going to talk about what's actually happening in Iran right now, what people there are saying, and what Iranian-Canadians want the rest of us to understand. That in 30 seconds. We want to let you know that this episode of Real Talk is happening with the presenting sponsorship of our friends at Hansen Distillery and their new Mini Yeggs Cream Liqueur that has just been released, and we have it on good word that this is getting close to selling out. And Real Talkers, the team at Hansen is letting us know that you have something big to do with that. Of course, the demand in the first few days of the release of this limited batch cream liqueur has been astounding. You've been tagging us on your Instagram posts. You've been sending us emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com, letting us know that you've ordered it online at hansendistillery.com, or that you've popped into the distillery on 174th Street and 111th Avenue, just north of Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Just 2,000 bottles. They'll be gone before you know it. The perfect Easter treat over ice, in your coffee, over ice cream, or however else you typically enjoy your cream liqueurs. You can check out Mini Yeggs Cream Liqueur, just $32 a bottle, by the way, made proudly by Hansen Distillery, made right here. Nooran Ostadeian is an Edmonton-based real estate professional with Remax Elite and an active member of the Iranian community in Canada. She works closely with many Iranian families from different religious, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds who've built successful lives in Canada while maintaining strong ties to Iran. Nooran, thanks for making time and joining us on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here.
Absolutely. It means a lot to have the perspectives that we'll better understand through this show. Pegah Salari is an Iranian-Canadian, although I've been wanting to ask you this since you submitted your bio to us ahead of time. You presented yourself as a Canadian-Iranian, which is typically flipped on how people usually say it. I know you've been an Edmontonian for 20 years and an incredible volunteer in the community, but was that on purpose?
That was absolutely by design.
Tell me why.
Well, Canada has been my home. I've spent the majority of my adult life here. I can say now that I've spent the biggest chunk of my life in Edmonton. It used to be the city, my childhood city, where I grew up for 18 years. I left it to go to Tehran, to go to university, but Edmonton is essentially the biggest part of my life. So I'm very well connected within this community. I care about it, and I consider myself a Canadian Iranian now.
I like how you put that. I'm grateful for the answer. Reza Akbari is rounding out our panel, which is good to have you here, Reza. As we know, you've got radio experience, having formerly hosted a radio show in British Columbia.
Yes.
Grateful to have you here in our studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton. You've lived in Canada for about 20 years now, right? In Edmonton since 2018, active in the community for many years, including serving as the elected president of the Iranian Heritage Society of Edmonton, also a volunteer member of the PS 752 Justice Organization. I suspect we may talk about that aviation disaster involving Ukrainian Airlines today. You've also previously served on the board of directors on the Prince George Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Let me start with you. For people that are watching this from Canada, people will catch this episode from around the world, but folks that may feel the conflict is distant, how personal is this war for you and your families right now?
Well, I start from the most recent things. The shocking things that happened for me was the start from early January when the uprising started. The massacre happened in Iran, obviously, like many other millions Iranian from diaspora watching it, and we were very devastated until the news hit me from another high school friend who lives in Berlin. He just messaged me, "Hey, do you remember Ahmad?" And I was just like, I couldn't really connect it. I was like, who are you talking? And all of those. Finally, he sent me a picture. I was like, oh yeah, what's happening? And then he said like he's been shot with his son, 7 years old. That was the moment that everything flipped over for me, because I knew him. He was my classmate. He was sitting in front of me for 3 years. And yeah, even it hit me right now. And at the same time, I'm expecting my first child coming. So just knowing that he got shot with a 7 years old kid, and they weren't able to publicly talk about it, because they are under pressure to receive the body. In order to get the body, they had to basically even claim he was a Basiji member, which they did it actually. And they ask all the friends, family, do not put the picture out, do not speak about it, do not, all of those things. Well, we stay respectful to that request. But that was the moment really personally hit me. And it's funny and interesting. I just want to open this enough. I went through my Instagram chat and I saw that I had argument with him during last election in Iran, presidential election, when the Pezeshkian who become elected, and he actually went vote, and we had a very hot conversation that how you doing this, and he had the hope for a little bit of change. That was the only hope at that time he had. He voted for a Pezeshkian, and now he's even with his son. He's dead. He's been killed. This also combination of all of this, when I surf through my Instagram messages with him, it really hit me that like how this regime in a really a body of the brutality and devil side that I just can't find the right vocabulary to describe it. It really hijacked the entire of a nation, and everyone, regardless of you are pro-regime, you're against it, they're paying the price for it. The entire nation is paying price for it.
I'm so sorry for your loss, first of all, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. What a perspective. Nooran, the personal impact of all of this, the personal toll on you or on people that you care deeply about, how do you put it into words?
Well, I am also very involved in our community, and I have lots of people. And as you know, even this supposedly in Nowruz, which is on March 20th, I was going to have a big party for Iranian community. And after we watched the news, what's going on, and just going through all the pain that people go through, and they share with the world through the internet and social media, it was such a heartbreaking, and I decided to cancel the event, even though there was kind of some financial losses. But considering that over 40,000 kids, I would say, they are very young, that they gave their lives for their freedom, I think it impacts all of our lives. And even though we are far away, I haven't been in my country for over 35 years. I left long time ago. I went to Germany and then to Canada. But still, that's my country. And when I see kids, when he explained the story about his friend and his kids, that hit me too, even though I don't know who they are. It doesn't matter. But this is something the whole community suffered, regardless which religion, which ethnicity, which background.
You come at this from an interesting position, talking about religious discrimination, though, however, as a member of the Baha'i community, a religion that most people may not know originated in Iran nearly 200 years ago, but followers of that faith have faced systemic discrimination and persecution for decades in Iran.
Yeah, for almost 50 years. So that's the reason. So the Baha'i religion is not recognized in Iran and probably in any Islamic country because we came after Islam. And they do systematic persecution of Iranian Baha'is, or even by the time I was in Iran, I think I was 10 or 11 years old when the revolution had started. And that's interesting. I'm older than these two folks here, so I went through before and after revolution. I experienced things that probably you guys were born after the revolution, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I am the generation that I was enforced to have my first scarf on my head, and so many things, seeing and experiencing that women are losing their rights completely. And as a child in a Baha'i family, this was even worse, because not only I was suffering like any other woman or Iranian, we were suffering even deeper as a Baha'i, because they took us all basic rule, even rights in Iran. They took all the states, kind of the governmental jobs, pension. They denied higher education for young people. And as the list is long, even if Reza was in Iran right now, he is expecting the first child. He would have difficulty to get the birth certificate for his child. Because when we as Baha'i marry in Iran, we cannot be recognized, and that would be a kind of private contract between man and woman, between themselves, but we are not registered. When we have children, you will have freaking difficulty for you're getting your birth certificate. These are the basic right in any country. You can imagine what we went through.
I'm looking at my source here is rarehistoricalphotos.com, but I've long been fascinated by photos of Iran pre-revolution and a society that is, I mean, I'm showing one on my screen right now. You can see, for those that are watching us on the live stream presented by California Closets, this is appears to be obviously a progressive or nation, or a nation not dissimilar to many others, where women would be attending universities, dressing freely, expressing their style, their fashion. It must have been or it must be a wild experience for you to see the, do I say the evolution or the de-evolution of a society like you have personally witnessed as somebody that was there?
Yeah. It was so difficult. The picture that you showed right now, this is the kind of casual picture on the street. I remember my sister going to party, and my older sister, they dress up like European people here, no restriction, no one even thought about it. And imagine you are living your life, and overnight everything changes. The woman who went on the street chanted for this regime to come on power, or they chanted for death of the Shah and everything. All of a sudden, they became the first victim of this regime. So they enforced a woman for mandatory hijab. And I remember exactly my sister, older sister, she stayed at home for a few days. She didn't want to leave the house because everyone was hoping this is a temporary thing and they are going to fix it. Women, they went back on the street, they demonstrated, we don't want a hijab, but they were beaten, they were shot, they were imprisoned because of asking for their basic right. So, and I remember after a few days, my sister, like any other woman, they gave up and they start going back to work or to school. And even for myself, I was probably 12 years old back then. And I remember one day I was going to school. My mom stopped me and put me one of those scarves on my head. And I said, "What the hell are you doing? What are you doing, Mom?" She said, "Well, kid, I'm so sorry, but that's your life from now. If you want to be safe on the street, that's the life from now on." And that was the saddest thing you could do. I mean, sure, it's hard to imagine. Imagine that all of a sudden you
it's
have to.
It's blowing my mind just thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And to process it as the adult experience would be one thing. That the child's experience would be an entirely different thing. And you were old enough to remember it, 10, 11 years old. We all remember from that era of our lives. In our live chat here, powered by Park Power, Chantel says, "I am so glad that these guests are on the show today. It's going to be refreshing and powerful, obviously, to hear their experience on this issue." Cherie says, "The people that bitch about Canada being broken or Canada being communist really need to watch this episode." And Amanda says, "Hearing these people talk makes you realize how much the propaganda machine is working overtime." Amanda says, on all sides. We'll talk about American and Israeli involvement. We'll talk about Canada's role in this as you see it. Let's cut to present day, to right now. Pegah, who are Ali and Youssef?
Well, we know them through the literary community in Iran. My husband is an author and a published author, and he's very connected. I have been too. I have followed Iranian literature. When I tell you I'm Canadian Iranian, it doesn't mean that I've ever stopped being an Iranian. It's just I have sort of combined the two worlds, and I consider Canada home. But in that sense, I left Iran, but Iran never left me, is the way we Iranians tend to say it. So I followed, for years, I've been following Iranian literature, and Youssef in particular, I bought all my Persian books from him through internet for years. So he has a bookshop, but he is a novelist and a literary critic, and he's spoken very freely against the Islamic regime in Iran for as long as I can remember, for as long as I've been following him. And he's paid the price, in several different ways, to build on what Nooran was just saying. There are so many ways this Islamic regime has hurt people. You'd be so surprised. They do not hesitate to threaten people's loved ones. They would bring somebody into questioning and they would threaten their children. It is the grossest, most brutal, medieval kind of theocracy you can find. So Youssef in particular has been detained since before war, sometime in December it was, and we kept thinking, he's going to be released one of these days. They're going to threaten him and frighten him and then release him back, but no one knows where he is, and he has serious medical issues, and we know he's not getting any medical care, and he is just one example out of thousands and thousands of political prisoners that are being kept in very inhumane situations without access to lawyers. Their lawyers are being detained, for crying out loud. This is, they don't even have the basic right to defense.
Well, I would never say who these individuals are, but I can let you know that over the course of the last week and a half or so, we have reached out to a number of different people, experts in different fields, who have respectfully, and I understand where they're coming from, but respectfully declined invitations to appear on the show out of fear or out of concern of what implications may be for people that they care about that are still in Iran. That is not lost on me.
The fear is real. Back in 2016, after the massacre that happened, we call it Bloody Aban, but it was right around the time with the surge in gas prices. All of a sudden they became tripled, completely unprecedented. People took to the streets trying to fight for their very basic, economic need, and they got massacred. And back then we thought 3,000 was a very large number. Putting it in perspective, they just killed over 30,000 people. And the number, you can't really rely on the numbers. We know it is well upwards of 40, if not more. Mm-hmm. But, we don't want to just throw numbers around because we don't want to discredit ourselves. In reality, we know they're criminal minds. We know they shot at people, anybody in front of them, with military-grade weapons. So, of course. And this happened across Iran, every street, every city, every neighborhood. And, people were just killed and buried in mass graves. Many have disappeared. No one knows where they are. There are families that are really terrified to ask for their loved ones, try to find them. So, when you look at all of that, then the number to me, one day we're going to find the truth and we're going to know that it is well upwards of what we've been talking about.
And
but
it's keeping up. Adding
and
up.
it's adding up, and more people
Adding
dare to show up and talk about their loved ones. So back in 2016 when I started, I went to CBC and I did a television interview, and it's not like I hadn't done them before, but that was that point when I knew it's a big risk to go back to Iran. So I stopped going, and right around pretty much very close to that time, the Ukrainian flight was shot down. And I am also heavily involved with the Association of Families of the PS752 flight, and I am not going to go back, or I didn't dare even trying it. So right now I sit here without any possibility of visiting my country. I don't know. It's, this attack now gives me the slightest modicum of hope that maybe it will become possible for me to go back to visit soon.
You wrote something powerful to me ahead of this, Reza. We're joined right now, if you're just joining our live stream, by Reza Akbari, Pegah Salari, and Nooran Ostadeian in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. You said one of the most catastrophic fears that many Iranians, both in and outside of the country, carry today is the possibility that after everything that has happened, this regime could still survive.
Yes. That's even just listening to your repeating that sentence from you, it gives me a goosebump, because it is the most really catastrophe things that can happen. But before I open on that, I want to add one thing, elaborate on the part that Nooran Ostadeian mentioned here about the religion. I want to put every Canadian who listens to this in a perspective. In Iran, whenever you sign any government document, when you want to register your kids at this school from grade 1 all the way to university, it's officially on a paper. They ask about your religion. You have to claim what your religion is. And that what you put down, it indicate your future in that country. It indicate what service you are able to receive from government, and what service you're being caught from receiving from the government. I say that with a full confidence, because my parents, entire of my childhood, like they're actually, they were principal and president of various schools, and they spent their entire of life of careers within the basically educational system in Iran. And I do remember their names, or basically the situation at home. They were talking, hiding. They had a couple Baha'i students in their schools, and they left that part empty. They did not fill it up because they don't want a Baha'i. Never claim that they're not Baha'i. And they had to write a handwriting on their own. That is, they're not Baha'i. Like, they claim them they're Muslim, because they get checked from government on a regular basis. They come check all those forms that is filled by the students or by family. And if there is any student that is claiming Baha'i, they will pull them out of a school. They cannot be allowed to service them, educate them, although they are Iranian. They were born, raised for generation in that country, but just simply because what they believe, it cuts them from every service that government provides. So,
may I add one thing here? Because I think your Muslim audience will appreciate knowing this. It's not enough to say if you're Muslim or not. You also have to specify if you are Shiite or Sunni.
Exactly.
And the Sunni get marginalized very severely in Iran. So that Islamic regime that some of the Muslim community within Edmonton have been defending, if you go there, you're going to be marginalized, because you only have to be Shiite Muslim and announce it repeatedly in order not to be discriminated.
And now, thank you, Pegah. And now, back to exactly, this is actually kind of a good opening to the sentence that you brought. Why is going to be catastrophe if this regime survive? It's simply the history and the structure of this regime. It proves it to us. When you go back through the history, like when the moment the regime was threatened in during 80s, after basically they deal with the threat, the first things they do, they went after all the political prisoners. and thousands of political prisoners were executed in a matter of days without any court, without any justification, and they were not even allowing their family knows, and they buried them in a mass burial site without any name, without any sign. We've seen enough in a history, and what recently we saw that the massacre and brutality they showed, we know that if this regime survive, the first thing that's going to happen, people has to pay the price. They're going to go after every political prisoners. They have over 80,000 according to their own resources that claim 70 to 80,000 from early January uprising, and they have other thousands of political prisoners from before. They're going to go after them. They're going to go after every Iranian in diaspora that they are active. And the world going to see escalation on a violence and a terrorist attack against the civilian, even outside of Iran, particularly in a Western country. And this is not just hallucination. We've seen it. This is a track record of it in history. And not caring about it, it's I think a biggest loss.
That's Reza Akbari, who's joined by Nooran Ostadeian and Pegah Salari in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. We have audience questions here. I have many more questions myself, and obviously the three of you have such important things to say. I want to lead off in just a moment with a question from Cliff, who's curious for your thoughts on the 7 members of the Iranian women's soccer team who have been granted visas, the rest of the squad who is now leaving Australia. It's a story that the world is watching. More on this Real Talk Roundtable in just a moment. This conversation is happening with the support of Real Talk partners like Athabasca University, Canada's open university. You know, there's no better time than right now to take that degree or master's program you've been thinking about. You can check out Athabasca U for more information and join learners across Canada. And if you've been considering going back to school, AU, as Canada's open university, you should know it's serving students coast to coast with 35 online master's and doctorate programs. And of course, the only commute is to your device. That eliminates one of the big hurdles for a lot of folks that have been endeavoring to get that undergraduate or graduate degree, to head back to school to better prepare themselves for the job market, but haven't found themselves anywhere near a brick and mortar university. Well, AU is designed to fit your life. For ambitious people across Canada and beyond, AU offers flexible approaches to higher education. You can learn more about the AU Advantage today by checking out athabascau.ca. Our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce reaching out to business leaders in the Metro Edmonton region. If you're looking for the quick hits on Alberta's provincial budget, what matters, what changed, and of course what it all means for Edmonton's business community, you can check out their Budget in a Blink post at edmontonchamber.com. A great way to see what Alberta's budget means for your business. And if you'd like to be even more involved, a reminder that their 2026 provincial budget luncheon is approaching. That's Minister Nate Horner, who will be appearing and speaking to those in attendance. Tickets are still available at edmontonchamber.com. Hear directly from the minister, ask your own questions, and of course, rub shoulders with business leaders and decision makers from across the province. That's one of the huge advantages of a membership with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. You can learn more at edmontonchamber.com. If you're going to be going green this spring or summer, if your family, your business, maybe your farming operation is going to be installing solar panels to save money and help save the planet, we recommend that you reach out to Kuby Renewable Energy today. That's kuby.ca. Their team of engineers can get rolling on the plans for your project. Of course, they can get it costed out and get you on that installation schedule. It's fast filling. So today's the best day to check out kuby.ca. Friesen Brothers, always with something on the go across their 16 Alberta locations, and that includes coming up the big pie sale. Friesen Brothers is going to be on the 14th of March. That's 0314. Of course, you guys know how that goes. They're going to be their team of bakers rolling out 5-inch specialty pies for just $3.14. I love how they do this every year. It's one of our favorite traditions. You can learn more on their website. That's friesen.com/pies. You'll be able to choose from apple, cinnamon, pumpkin, or rhubarb strawberry. This is one day only, March 14th, National Pie Day at Friesen Brothers. Friesen Brothers is proudly Alberta grown and Alberta owned. Our Real Talk Roundtable on the Iran war impact on Canadians continues with a question from Cliff in our live chat. The world has been watching the plight of these Iranian women's soccer team, these remarkable athletes. And Cliff is wondering, as 7 of them have been granted visas to stay in Australia, the United States confirming there had been applications made as well, or at least the Americans had offered to make those visas available. The rest of the squad is leaving Australia. Cliff is wondering, what are your thoughts about this team and their defiance of the IRGC? Says now many of them on their way back home to who knows what.
Well, these women are a few of several very brave Iranian women who have been showing their resistance against the brutalities of this regime and their discrimination for 47 years. The women are remarkable. I like to salute them all because we are on a daily basis in awe of their bravery. That being said, you know, this whole thing started by them refusing to sing along with the national anthem. For some of your audience, this would be very interesting to know. Ever since they instilled this new, we call it the new national anthem, one of the first things that comes to mind is that the word Iran, the country that this is supposedly the national anthem for, does not appear in the song even once. So these women refused to sing along with it, and do you blame them? This has been one of the signs of showing resistance, and you know, we were very proud of them when we saw that. That being said, we knew that they're going to be in imminent danger. They have very openly spoken about how anybody that shows any sign of resistance against the regime should now be treated as a war criminal, which immediately means execution, being hung. I'm sure their families have been threatened, because I know one of them actually refused to stay and joined the team. So she is on her way back. I don't know what kind of threats they used against her to get her out of that asylum that she was already in. And I'm terrified for them. And I know they're going to use them to set an example for everybody else, especially Iranians in diaspora have been openly threatened. So I'm terrified. I was up like 3 times last night just checking their status and see where they are.
Where's your head at on that, Nooran?
Well, we heard so many similar stories over the last 50 years with different kind of sport people that they come. But, you know, I'm glad that countries like Australia, they give shelter to these type of people. Even U.S. with these ICE stories still giving refuge to these women, which is important because that kind of heartbreaking, because that goes back again to your basic rights and following their beliefs, following their rules, everything that Islamic regime is dictating. You know, because they have the majority in Iran, any minority has to always listen to what they want and what they want. They are the one who basically decide for you in any aspect, even as a sporter or whatever you do. And of course, we are very happy that for Australia, we are thankful, and hopefully they will remain and their family wouldn't be affected by this regime, because these are evils.
You talk about the threat of the regime surviving, and I think for a lot of people outside of Iran that may seek in earnest to understand the situation but lack a fulsome understanding of it, people like me, you know, we see, of course, many different expressions around this from Iranians, from the diaspora around the world, people speaking out like you about the true cost of this and what this means in very personal terms. And then with the announcement of the new supreme leader, we see thousands of people pouring into the streets and celebrating it and cheering. And I would wager a guess that millions of people around the world don't totally understand how to process it, or what is maybe a true representation of what the Iranian people are feeling. Can you help us sort it out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pegah, actually, I want to connect that, your question to what Pegah mentioned about the national anthem. There is not a single word of what's so-called national anthem proposed by Islamic regime has any mention about Iran, the word of Iran. And that doesn't stop there. The word, the kind of abbreviation that you hear in IRGC is maybe for non-Iranian, the moment they hear that one, they think I stands for Iran, but it doesn't. Even in that military mindset force, the IRGC stands for Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, like the organization that is designed to protect the regime, Islamic regime. I want one things that your audience to really understand. Nothing, absolutely nothing is about Iran and Iranian people. It's all about protecting what so-called Islamic regime and entire of our national resources, entire of our asset in terms of humanitarian assets, all the way to the basically resources we have. It's just simply a tools for this regime for what the mission of what so-called Islamic exporting Islamic revolutionary. I study at, I named this the school. I study at the high school, elementary school called Surush. And that school, it's very restricted school. It's a very religious school. Lots of parliament's kids and like regime children would go to that school because of this dynamic that they propose to the students. Every single day in my childhood, from when I went grade 7 all the way to grade 12, 7 years old, grade 1, all the way to grade 12, we stand in a line, we chant one things: death to America, death to Israel, death to whoever is against this regime, which we call it Munafiqeen. And then recently added with the nuclear energy is our rights, which kids in the school we don't have a proper internet in Iran, but they're chanting that their right is to have a nuclear energy. But why I brought these things for you all the way up, because when it's in a population of 90 million people, 80 million people inside Iran, even if you think about 3% of that population stands behind the regime, or it's a regime able to mobilize them as a supporter behind them, provide them a service, just simply because of the financial support, it's easily turn out to be 1,000 people coming to the street. So I ask from all your audience, don't get fooled by what the regime propaganda is. Always remember, this regime that shows you the support in Iran for the new supreme leader, or what's so-called, let's see, by the way, if he's alive or even he can speak or talk. That's another story on a topic on that one. But when think about this, always remind yourself, this regime has shut down the internet for a long time of period right now. Like when we say shutdown, it truly means shutdown. It's like a water tap that you close a tap. It disconnected significant millions of people from Iran to the outside of the board, just to control the message that is going out of Iran by their own propaganda machine. So don't get fooled about it. And the fact is, question this fact that they are not allowing their information come out. Why is they not allowing this to come out? And I can tell you, my friends, my fellow Canadian, really, this is nothing about Iran. It is nothing about Iranian people. It's all about protecting that Islamic mission. It's going and it's exporting it around the region. And we see it, the proxy around the region that developed, all of those is aligned with that kind of mindset of protecting the Islamic revolution.
Somewhat of a shocking statement from the President of the United States less than 24 hours ago, talking about what convinced him that the Americans needed to take military action alongside Israel in Iran. And I want to talk to you about justification for the war, or whether or not, quite frankly, that even matters to you. And we'll hear from the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, as well. But first, this from United States President Donald Trump. This one caught the world's attention.
The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And
So Donald Trump goes on from there and was widely criticized, I think, yesterday for that, for suggesting that it was a former TV host and his son-in-law who convinced him to go in, not based necessarily on military intelligence or compelling reasons. We've heard from U.S. lawmakers that without congressional approval, this wasn't something that they would approve. Does that even matter to you, Pegah? I mean, it sounds to me like there's great justification from people who have lived experience in Iran that whatever way it goes down, this regime needs to be taken out. How are you processing some of the controversy around whether or not the United States and Israel should have taken this action without a fulsome plan on what the next steps might look like for the Iranian people?
They should have, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm actually very surprised that it took them so long to act. I have no doubt that this regime was preparing to attack them. You look at the movement of their proxies, look at where they started and how much they expanded their proxies. Venezuela was very much their backyard, preparing to attack the America from there. I don't believe that I was safe here in Canada as long as that regime had power, a missile program, and uranium enrichment in place. Anybody that thinks anything other than that, to me, is extremely naive, because we know their criminal mind. They wanted to take over the world. It is the Islamic philosophy to take over the world. It is in their ideology to go to the neighboring country and, as far as they can, and expand Islam. They want to take over. The only reason they haven't yet is because their incompetency was so bad. They weren't able to. We're talking about a country that just shoots a missile. They don't care where it's going to land. They don't target. They just shoot. Years ago, and I remember this very vividly, this was probably, both me and my brother are in Edmonton, but probably 25, 30 years ago, Shamkhani, who was one of the leaders that got killed on the first day right next to Khamenei, may they burn in hell, the two of them together. But I remember him saying, for now, our goal is to send the missile. Like in Farsi translation, he said, for now, our goal is partab. They didn't even care where they are targeting and where they're shooting at. And I remember me and my brother, like we were teenagers, we were laughing. How is that your goal? How does that even make sense? But this is their criminal mind. We're talking about a country that shot its own passenger airline 6 minutes after takeoff in its own airspace, to use them as human shield. Do you think the people of Canada and the States would be safe against this regime if they had the ability to shoot a missile carrying a nuclear, weapon with it? Absolutely not. I believe that was their ideology. I am convinced that this is what they were going to do. I am very surprised that it took the United States and Israel in particular so long to act on it. I believe they were preparing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a fool. I don't think they're there. This is not a rescue mission for the people of Iran. I truly believe they're acting in their own for the sake of the safety of their own citizens, as any country should, any government should. But if through this process the people of Iran get rid of this regime, which, let's face it, people would not be able to get rid of on their own, under no circumstances, I'm going to celebrate that.
Nooran, as people around the world, and in particular people in Iran, discuss different possible political futures in that country. Some are supporting the exiled prince, Reza Pahlavi, and others support Republican movements. You can read about different visions that people have for that leadership. What's your personal conviction, or what do you think?
Well, interesting that if you follow the street of Tehran, when people went on the street and they were chanting for Reza Pahlavi, the comeback of Reza Pahlavi, because yes, they were fooled 47 years ago. I would always blame their grandparents or their parents who went on the street, chanted for Khomeini, and thanks to Jimmy Carter, Khomeini came to power and they removed Shah. So Shah and his father, they built up Iran. Anything that you see that was thanks to them, and even anything that happening in the last 20, 30 years, they are following their plans, long-term plans. And now people, they need a leader. And who would be the best leader? They saw two kings with good records, and now after going through the hell for 47 years, they know if somebody can rescue them, that would be him. At least transactional, so he is not keen to be the king. He just want to help Iranian people to go through this and having the democracy, choose their own people. But interesting, people always, especially Islamic regime, they make propaganda that they say these are Iranian abroad, that they are always talking about Pahlavi. But actually, Iranian in Iran, they are more leaning towards Pahlavi.
What do you think?
No, absolutely. Like I can truly, I mean, I'm a generation after revolution. So I've never experienced the life before the revolution, but I experienced living on a significant daily propaganda that blaming and degrading the previous regime during the Shah, although literally every infrastructure that today it's a lean of that country, it exists in that country, Iran, is built during Shah. From the largest stadium we have, through the subway system that is in Tehran, the map, everything was executed during the Shah. But the regime used a propaganda that degrade the whole Shah. From that kind of mindset, I came out. I'm living in diaspora, and I see many people in diaspora supporting it. But the early January, from north to south, from west to east of Iran, every town, every street that they uprise, we only hear people, particularly the young generation, they only call in one name, Reza Pahlavi, Reza Pahlavi. It's maybe they don't necessarily fully know who Reza Pahlavi is, but everybody, they're living with the infrastructure that was built during his father and his grandfather, and they can see the incompetency of this regime demonstrated to the level no one has ever seen in the last 47 years. And that's leave us with only one solution. We never hear any other name in the street. We never hear any other sign.
Well, let me ask you about this. Kaveh Shahruz is a lawyer at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute and has written a particularly interesting opinion column in the Globe and Mail. The headline reads, "Why We Should Be Leery of Reza Pahlavi as Leader of Iran." And I wanted to read one passage in particular that jumped out at me. And full disclosure, I'm just learning about all of this. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in Iranian history. I'm so grateful that the three of you are here to talk about this. But I want to read directly from this piece. People can find it in the Globe and Mail. And here's the argument. It says in two parts. Many of us, Iranian diaspora, are alarmed, number one, because of the illiberal, thuggish behavior of the movement he has cultivated, which contradicts his polished speeches. His celebrity allies direct crude abuse at the mothers of his critics. His supporters glorify the Savak? Is that it? The Shah's notorious secret police. Calls for deaths to leftists, death to leftists, a favored chant at his rallies. And there have also been allegations here, in particular, that the movement is described here as unmistakably far right and blood and soil nationalists. But the author points out that Mr. Pahlavi had removed the revolutionary slogan "Women, Life, Freedom" or "Woman, Life, Freedom" from his media channels, apparently, and this is where I say allegedly, because supporters disliked its feminist undertones and the fact that it originated among Kurds. This author writes, in its place, the movement has embraced the slogan "One homeland, one flag, one leader," which the author writes is a chilling echo of a Nazi phrase invoked more than 80 years ago. You're nodding your head. Is it resonating with you? Where are your thoughts on that piece?
I know Kaveh very well. I've worked with him in our advocacy for PS 752, so I know him and I know where his thoughts come from. I sympathize with some of the things he says. I agree with a lot of the criticisms that he is laying against Pahlavi. That being said, Pahlavi represents a time before this medieval despotism, and we cannot forget that. And in the absence of any other options, and the fact that, him representing a king that really cared about its people, had nationalistic views, wanted to see a better Iran, wanted to help Iranian people progress and flourish. I feel like it is very natural selection for people to choose to go follow him. And I trust in Reza Pahlavi more than the whole clan that's around him. But I do believe that he's a modern man. I do believe that he has modern views. I do believe that when the time comes and he has the resources, he can lead this country to, a democracy. He is actually a Republican himself. He has said that he's not going to run for office. He is really only there to support the people of Iran through a transition. And the thought of another religious leader being appointed in Iran, it is such a scary thought to me that I will take Reza Pahlavi over it any day.
That's our biggest fear, actually. Just jumping in, one of the fears that we have, if this regime stays, they would be stronger than before even. They would be more resilient. And that's a really scary thing. And what we don't like, I don't like it with the position of Trump, that he was announcing that they have a few good candidates in Iran. So they want to decide for us who would be our next president or king. That's not what Iranian wanted. Iranian wants their help to just remove these people from the surface completely. We know they have their own best interests in heart. Neither Israel nor America, they are going to defeat these people for us. They are doing for their own purposes. We are not naive. We know that exactly. One is after land, one is after the oil, one is stopping the other powers in the world. So we are very aware that, but this is the only option Iranians have. We have no power to defeat these beasts.
And,
so
and the choice must be left with the people. There has to be a referendum when the people of Iran get to vote for what they want moving forward. It is not up to Trump or anybody else. I can guarantee you people of Iran are going to want a secular democracy. Whatever they vote, whatever the shape of that government, because it doesn't matter. I'm not a monarchist, but you can have a democratic monarchy in place. And you can have a republic that is like the Islamic Republic. Look at what they did. So it's not about the form of the government. It's about, the ideas that supports it and the outcome. And I believe that has to be left in the hands of the people of Iran. Nobody else gets to make that call.
I want to get to what Canada's Prime Minister has said most recently about this war, and from Mark Carney in just a moment. If you're just joining our live stream presented by California Closets, that was Pegah Salari that was just speaking, Nooran Ostadeian before her, and Reza Akbari in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. The Prime Minister has been criticized, including in our Monday episode with Supriya Dwivedi, for initially supporting, quote, Israel's right to defend itself, and also the American involvement to prevent Iran from presenting serious threats to global security. The Prime Minister has since walked back some of those statements, leaving some Canadians, including members of his own caucus, to wonder where his government and where Canada stands on this. We're talking to you on a Wednesday. This is what the Prime Minister had to say to those in Ottawa, in the House, on Tuesday.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. Canada's policy is clear. Canada supports the necessity of preventing Iran's nuclear program and exporting of any terrorism. Canada is not participating in the offensive operations of Israel and the United States and will not ever.
That was Mark Carney, obviously translated from French during question period in the House of Commons. I'll ask generally, and then I want to get to some audience questions and comments on this matter. But what do the three of you believe that Canada's role should be, big picture or zoomed in?
Well, let me start one things, and I want to kindly remind not only Mr. Carney, our Prime Minister, but also entire of Canadian Secret Agency, CSIS, in the last recent publication that they had, it discussed in a parliament, they released into the public that they identify over 700 agents of Iranian or Islamic regime active in Canadian soil. So this is everybody who listen here that we have over 700 of they're ready to act in a wish of the Islamic regime in Iran, whatever that act is going to be, whatever it didn't break through that. So we are living in this kind of dynamic. Number one. Number two is I want to go back now to the scenario of Iran. When we say the Islamic regime is motivated to act against, it's in their blood, in their mission. I give one scenario for everyone to hear. in my whole childhood, every time in a class that was starting, our principal would come in a school. Obviously, again, he's a religious principal. He would come and he says, like, he would read a prayer for us at the morning when we were getting ready to go to the class. And the definition of that prayer would come up that turning the White House into a Shia mosque. And he was praying every day for a day that he sees the Shia Muslims are capturing White House and are praying inside that. As much as it sounds like crazy, impossible to anyone who hear this, but this is exactly what motivates them to take any possible action that is impossible in your mind. And when we are living in such a dynamic, and now link that ideology to have that system, have over 700 that been identified, who knows, maybe there are actually more than 700 in Canadian soil. And the biggest things I'm seeing from our Prime Minister, the situation in Iran has become a political game right now for many other countries. Political game between right and left. And they just simply will say who is standing where without consideration. I'm going to be against that position to stand on it. And this is putting Canadian safety inside the Canadian soul in jeopardy of such a political act to be just simply become a game between right and left side of the spectrum.
I liked his stance on Monday better. I think he's responding to pressure. And I believe Canada must see this war as something that is in its benefit. Because I've heard this tossed around quite a bit, that Canadian tax dollars are funding the bombs that are falling on the people of Iran. I'd like to, again, for the sake of your audience, I'd like to make that very clear. Do some research. Canada does not fund U.S. or Israel military. They have a very extensive military budget of their own. There is alliance, there is defense alliance, and Canada sells military pieces and some defense equipment, which comes back to Canada, to Israel, which comes back to Canada in form of revenue. I actually, because I'm a business person, I ended up doing extensive research on the topic. Canadian tax dollars are not becoming the bombs that are being dropped on the people of Iran. Let's just be very clear about that, because that is a misconception. Alliance is one thing, that the alliance through NATO and all of that, that is all on the defense side, and it's been in place for far too many years for us to all of a sudden remember it and talk about it now. And it serves the security of the Canadian people. But I do truly believe that Canada has been a destination for these regime apparatus and their propaganda figures to come here, and they've invested, they've bought properties, they are within the faculty members at major universities. They have been fighting for the narrative of this regime, and they have been, raising the anti-war conversation, and they speak very loudly on social media. And I think those are some of the ones that are. Look at the Iranian-Canadian Congress and the stance they've taken. Did you know that there are some people in Canada that have celebrated the life, like they have held an actual ceremony in honor of Khamenei, the leader of a terrorist regime? It's been recognized by Canada as a terrorist regime. How is it that these people get to freely get together in Canada and celebrate him? We saw that on social media. I wish I had brought you some of that information. I'm sure you're going to do your own research on it. But they exist, and they are a major threat. And they have, over the years, when they felt more in power and weren't so weakened, they never hesitated to follow us, to threaten us, to make comments such as, don't you want to go back to Iran? Hey, Pegah, you speak very freely against the Iranian regime. Aren't you worried? Don't you have family? My parents have been here for like 9 years. The first 11 years I was here, they didn't live here. I've been said that, and they are members of our community. They go to U of A, they go to U of T, they're everywhere. And they are not going to hesitate to do what they need to do to support the regime that sent them to Canada and is paying for their lives.
Can I comment on that? Sorry, Pegah.
Oh, go ahead.
We don't need Mark Carney or Canada's military support. I think America and Israel are more than enough, personally. What we need is to kick these allies from Canada.
Absolutely.
It is more than 700 people.
100%,
There are a lot of them even in Edmonton. I know a few of them. from the fact. And you know what bothers me personally? That Canada is the shelter for these people who steal Iranians' money, and they bring it here because they come. I forgot the name. That was a banker a few years ago. He came for $300 million. And Canada knows that. And Canada doesn't do anything. They know exactly these are terrorists. They bring the money from the resources, from Iranian resources. They're stealing our rights, and they give them home in Canada. We don't need your military. Just kick out these people from your country. Let us live in peace here. Because honestly, that you said few people denied to have an interview with you. Mm-hmm. So we came here. We know there is a threat for us too. Luckily, we don't go back to Iran, but we have enough these people here so that thing can happen. But we do it for our folk. We want to be voice of our people. And hopefully, this would be Canadian help for all of us, that they can really send these people back and seize the money that they stolen from us. This is not their money. This is Iranian money. And that is the hypocrisy that we want them to stop. Even in US, same thing. Don't think that they don't have this thief in US. There are a lot of them. And in fact, one point I wanted to add, yes, this Islamic regime, they like to spread Islam all over, but they know they cannot make it. They know. You know what they do? They want to keep the people, the followers warm, people who are not educated, and they think this is all about Islam, which is not. It's all about money. They just want to stay in power, because you guys don't know that, but thousands of their family members, they are living in California, in Toronto, in Europe. They go on the pool, their daughters with the bikini, enjoying their life with the cocktails. Mm-hmm. And there are so many footages. We have seen those. And their father with his outfit, staying in Iran, stealing our money. They just are after the oil. One of them sons have 67 oil sheep in, what is that? The tanker.
Yeah.
Thank you. So where did they get that money from? So these are things that they are ruining our country. And in a rich country, there's so many natural resources. Our people are living in poverty. They cannot buy the basic daily food for their kids, for their children. And you don't know how many children they are on the street selling flowers or cleaning the windshields of cars to get a little bit money to survive. And a country have so much in that.
A rich country like this, imagine half the population of Iran. This is before the recent uprising or the war. They are unable to afford dairy products, period. Eggs and bread used to be the food of the poor. They are unable to buy that. I don't even know what they're eating these days.
And I want to just add one thing right in here in Edmonton, from a personal experience during a Women Life Freedom Movement. Many Edmontonians perhaps see us different protests in the street. We went, I'm not going to name it, but we went to office of, at the time, a Liberal MP in downtown, near downtown in Edmonton. With the other 7 members of...
There's only one Liberal MP anywhere
so
near here.
I already everybody knows who I'm
Sorry,
talking
just
about.
a light moment there.
Yes, No,
Carry on.
Yeah, so we went with the 7 members. 2 were directly impacted from the situation. At his office, we expressed, because during the protest, many people came to us, point out a couple people who came, and they're telling them, if I were instead of you, I would be voting for my family in Iran. So we took it as a direct threat. We even exposed it to the reported, and at the same time we were talking with the MP, a Liberal MP in downtown in Edmonton. This is literally his feedback after listening to us. He told us, you will bring in a topic that is far above my pay grade. At the same time, also, many of these you asking for, at the time IRGC was on a list of terrorists. That's what our ask was. What you are asking gonna take a lot of money, businesses away from Canada. And it really shocked all of us 7 over there. And then that was myself. So what is the role of Canadian security? We didn't come to your office to tell you we don't like these people. We come to your office because we feel our life is threatened here in Canadian soil. And you are exposing like the money and financial things that are tied to this groups that they're coming, and they're very, in terms of number, they're very minimal, but apparently they have a big money. It's more matter to you than what our Canadian safety or our safety is in Canadian soil. It was a big shocking. And that's why I connect that response simply because it comes from a similar kind of a political perspective, all the way to what we are hearing from Liberal up to now.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to reflect on that. I oftentimes will go back and rewatch an interview and kind of sort out what was said here. And that's a big deal. This is a big deal what you're talking about, and I don't think that it's being discussed enough. There are Canadians, there are millions of Canadians right now that are really in good faith, I think, endeavoring to better understand what's happening right now and understand what Canada's role could be or should be or has been, for that matter. And this is very significant. And many people, of course, because of our humanity and our empathy, are focusing on the people of Iran. And I'm grateful that the three of you are obviously talking about the people of Iran, because these are your friends, these are your family members, these are people that you care deeply about. Chantal in our live chat, powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider, says it is heartbreaking that the U.S. and Israel are saying that this war on the Iranian people is to liberate them. Meantime, the Iranian people are suffering either way. She says the regime didn't change, bombs still fly. Matthew wrote in with an interesting comment, said, well, he was completing his undergrad just about 10 years ago. He says at the University of Alberta, he met an Iranian PhD student who spoke with him about the situation in Iran. He says back then, 2017, Trump was pulling out from the nuclear deal and imposing sanctions. He says, the man told me that many Iranians wanted the regime to fall, but he didn't think that sanctions were the way to do it because they affected regular people that had no control over the situation. Matthew says he was a very nice man, very soft-spoken. I wonder where he is and how his family is doing now. That from Matthew. Do any of you have an idea on the right way to do it? All things considered, including the toll that it takes, the cost on the average Iranian?
Well, first of all, thank you, Matthew. You nailed it. So it was really what you said. That is something that Iranian people right now, what they need is really the support and compassion of other people around the world. I have to admit, I forgot the question.
Well, he was curious. He just said that, Iranians may want the regime to fall, but this gentleman that he had spoken with about 10 years ago didn't think sanctions were the way to do it because they would most punish the people that had no control over the situation.
Thank you. This sanction, they are just making pressure on Iranian people. That's why the kid goes on the street. This sanction never, ever helped Iran. And actually, they made them even stronger in some aspects, because they start to make their own missiles. They start to do many other things. We don't need the sanction. We need the way that they brought these people in Iran 47 years ago without any blood to dripping. Take them back. You think Khomeini came on its own and removed Shah 47 years ago? The guy was sitting, washing himself somewhere. There are so many pictures. And you think he has the power to come to Iran, removing a Shah, a king, that easy? No. That was these Western countries, like today, America behind everything. Jimmy Carter was the one who caused all of this because Shah stood up against the price of the oil and so many other things. We don't want to go deep into politics, but this was the reason that they removed him, because he was making trouble. And everything was about the price of the oil and control of the region, because Iran was the strongest economy and military country in Middle East. And they want to always stop him. And they had somebody sitting somewhere in France, and they brought him. And Shah, he loved his people. He didn't want to kill like these people they do. And he said, I don't want to really cause the death of my folk. I love them. If they want me to leave, I will leave. That was voluntarily what he did. And look at these people. So the way that they remove Shah, they can bring his son easily. But there are so many things in dirty politics, we all know, that they cannot do it. So they go with the missile in the 7th floor on an apartment in Tehran, kill the scientist, and they cannot really get rid of these people. They kill Khamenei that easy. Why not going after all of them?
Well, the problem is it's not just the leaders now. Now there is an army that is armed and really like a spider web all over the country. All their military bases, these besiege locations, they are IRGC locations. They are intertwined with the civilian lives right now. They have a little center on every single street. So honestly, I feel like they're like the mafia. They're a cartel. Yeah. And to go back on your question about that, I think diplomacy can be a very tiresome concept. I can see why they started with the sanctions. I supported the nuclear deal back in 2015, 2016. When was that? I thought it's going to help the people of Iran to live better. But that being said, the regime continued to sell our oil through their ghost fleet and pocketed the money and supported Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and you name it all around the world and built bigger and bigger bunkers under the ground, like mice would, literally. And they hid weapons and they became stronger and stronger. And I believe that I made a very big mistake when I thought that supporting the nuclear deal back 10 years ago would have helped the people of Iran. So I wonder, Matthew, if you find that gentleman now and ask him what he thinks, he could be just like me. He could now understand what a dangerous move that was. And to be honest, as long as this regime is in place, they're going to find a way to sell our oil for nothing. And there are countries that have been benefiting from that. Those are also the countries that have been feeding into the propaganda of this regime and preventing them from being removed from power because there is very major business benefits in it for them. They've been buying our oil for next to nothing, helping their economy grow. China, for example, they don't want this regime to be eradicated because they're going to use a very major resource. So close to them, I must add. And I believe that the sanctions they didn't do anything, but I understand that diplomacy required them to be probably the first act because everything has to be legitimized. And what bothers me is the lack of understanding of the mentality behind a regime like this. Honestly, I believe academia needs to come up with a new word for what these guys were. They're not a cartel, they're not a government. A regime, you would consider it to be more of a local concept. I don't know what they are, but they are essentially a cartel with the look of a government.
They are oil mafia.
It's an oil mafia, but it's an oil mafia that attends UN assemblies and gives big speeches and participates in Women's Rights Assembly of the United Nations. What on earth are you doing that? That's a joke, but the world has been entertaining it for far too long. And what bothers me now, we have brought down to a population, a nation that gets killed by 40,000 at a time. So now it doesn't matter if 200 of us get killed during a, army strike or a military strike against this regime. The civilian people are still paying the price. So I hope they wrap it up soon, and I hope they wrap it up effectively. And I hope that they do it and leave this battlefield only after this regime has been securely eradicated. And I have messages to show you from the occasional friends that tend to, connect for a few minutes. And they know I speak and they know I write. So many of them come to me and same thing happened to my husband. If I died, don't you dare make my death a reason for this war to end. Because I'd rather die today and this regime to be eradicated tomorrow. Mm-hmm. That is people's choice. This is my network of people, and I am very well connected, and I have people from all sorts of schools of thoughts. There are people that ever since this war started have been dancing and cheering and being happy and sending Trump their dance, congratulations and thanks and regards and all of that. And there are people that are really saying, well, civilian lives matter, they're dying, we don't want this, this is not to the benefit of the people of Iran. I stand right in the middle. I believe this war was inevitable. I believe it had to happen. I'm glad it finally something, what's a good way to put this, but like the international politics finally decided to act on this. But I am really terrified that ordinary citizens are getting killed, and that shouldn't be okay. So that was one of the things I told you. I want to speak about the political prisoners. I want to talk about all those orphan children that are now been put in a place where they're just being randomly given to random people without any background checks, nothing, because this regime failed to protect them. Something has to happen here. And I really hope that after this is all said and done, some international aid is planned and prepared to rush into this country that has been in very dire situation for half a century.
Yeah. And if I want to add one thing is, actually, when the nuclear deal happened, I was against it. Right at the moment, I was in. I know at that time I was among the not the mass majority, because a lot of Iranian, they were looking for like better economy in the future. But just as a personal note, a couple things was there. Like I was personally aware of like studying, reading, doing things what the nuclear research and enriching uranium means. And at the same time, there is one thing that I hope that your audience also learn about it. In a Shia Islamic term, we have a term called khut'ah. That means is you actually get the direction from the God, from the religion, that is a religion kind of method, that you lie and you sign, you portend everything in a pure reality of something that is not true. You commit to something that's actually a religious study. It teaches you in Shia Islam that in order to process, to achieve the bigger mission, the mission that they call it exporting Islamic regime, God train you actually, it's fine, and you will receive sabab, which means you will go to heaven by doing so. So knowing that the people who sign that deal, who commit to whatever and the part of that deal is, this is their religious belief, and that they can sign anything and any lie, and it's not a strategic lie, it's actually religiously admitted and confirmed, and it's a good thing to do. And at the same time, only a fool will accept 80 meters enrichment uranium underground. It's going to be for peaceful matters. It really blow me out that like how the Obama's administration, Western administration, accept Iran continue having a nuclear researchment 80 meters underground for just making a enriching peaceful energy for doing a medical research and medical purposes. Only a damn fool would accept that. It really hit me on that one, that how this is. Find me one country in the world that has a nuclear enrichment facility 80 meters underground for a peaceful matters. Like, as simple as that. Like, it really hit me how the world is giving them continuously chance after chance to show some difference. And every time we are facing with what happened to the $1.5 billion that Obama gave them after signing that contract? What happened to $4.5 billion that Biden gave them during his administration? All cash, directly send it to them to just come, like the signing bonus. Let's call it signing bonus. And what happened? We have the October 7th coming out of it. Did any of those dollars, a penny of it, get to the Iranian people? No. They all got to the proxy in Middle East and empowered them. And shortly after, it did not take 6 months after $4.5 billion Biden gave them, October 7th happened in Israel. And the moment it happened, the only country beside their leader in Qatar that they were doing praying and celebrating, that officially celebrated in a street right away, not even take 1 hour after that, was in Iran. They run a kind of a parade in the street after that. And it was all designed by Islamic regime. Only a fool will accept that the Islamic regime was not behind all of those. And now you can connect all of those things together. And I tell Matthew, your friend, I very appreciate the comment, but it's far beyond. It's far beyond that. Those things is like, we should not be naive and fool about these things. This is all planned for greater to reaching that nuclear weapon by the Islamic regime, and it was too late that it's, I think, this attack by U.S. and Israel. It still is too late. Hopefully, it really end up with bringing the regime down.
I told the three of you that we'd be done half an hour ago, but this has wound up as, I think, one of the most powerful conversations that we have had around this table, and one of the most important conversations we've had around this table since this show's inception 5.5 years ago. And that's not just me that's feeling it. In our live chat, Boom Shanker X says, this whole panel is incredible. Says, I want to thank everybody involved. Says, I'm sharing this episode with everybody I know. He says, this is what true courage looks like. Says he has goosebumps. Says Boom Shanker. Cheryl outside has just joined our YouTube channel member family. Cheryl, thank you so much for that. She says, we will be celebrating Iranian New Year's next week. She says, with international students who celebrated Christmas with us as well. Says these are hard times for those far from home. In so many ways as it's very difficult for people in Iran. Jillian is praising the courage that you've all brought to the table. Others are saying this has just been so incredibly valuable. Chantel says, thank you so much for calling out the terrorists that have been taking advantage of Iranians and Canadians alike. Alberta Girl says it's so good to hear the truth about how bad the Iranian regime has been for nearly 50 years. And the comments continue. I could probably, I mean, a lot of people, RS says oil cartels are everywhere. Interesting point there. We could do a whole show on that, couldn't we? They
just don't attend UN assemblies.
Sure.
Yes. And they don't use the religion to justify every cruel act they do.
Oh, very true.
Typically in a conversation like this, and it feels like we've only scratched the surface. There are so many things I have not asked you about, but I respect your time and this audience as well. I know we must move on with our day, as crass and strange as that sounds sometimes. When something so important is happening, there's people that still will go about their every day because that's what we do. People will pick up their kids from school, and people need to get to work. So we like to wrap up our roundtables with an invitation to give this audience one thing to think about. If people remember just one thing, we've covered a lot of ground in this episode, but just one thing from our conversation as they're walking their dogs or on the commute home, Nooran, what's the one thing you would ask Real Talkers to walk with and to be thinking about on this?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us here and being a voice for Iranian people. One thing that I would really ask people, ask the Canadian listener to do if they can, is spreading the word. Sharing the stories on social media. That's the way that's really just made our voice all around the world, and that was a big help. And this is the best thing that people can do to help us. And that's correct. So that's the social media.
Well, thank you so much for having us. Being an Iranian has been very lonely for the last so many years, especially being an immigrant Iranian in diaspora. But I also want to tell your audience, first of all, listen to Iranians. Check where you're getting your information from, because the narrative is really murky, and reach out to Iranians, because we're the ones who know their criminal minds and know that when they are no longer, you are safer. And that's very important to me. And I also want to say, this is not 2004 and Iran is not Iraq. We come from a different culture. We have different people. Education, understanding, worldviews are different. This is a different time. This is a time of social media. Everything is being recorded. Get your facts and get them and straighten them. And just because you know something happened in 2004 in Iraq does not mean that the same is going to happen to Iran. It's a different time and a different country.
Reza?
Thank you for having us. It was a wonderful conversation. I really want to, Pegah said one of my comments, because I want to say that Iran is not Iraq and Afghanistan. We have the highest educated people in the Middle East. But I want to add one thing into that. I finish it with this. Trust Iranian, the world without Islamic regime will be a better place, will be a safer place, and really support the narrative that it will get us there. It will make Canada better. The free Iran can be an amazing ally with the Western country, that it helps in a both way, prosperity, as well as the safety of the world and entire of that Middle East region.
That's Reza Akbari, joined by Pegah Salari and Nooran Ostadeian in our Real Talk Roundtable presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Just have so much respect for your continued advocacy. We've really not spent enough time talking about your work for the families aboard that ill-fated flight 752. Obviously, this is still a developing situation. The eyes of the world are watching, as it's been confirmed. 3 ships reportedly have been hit in the Strait of Hormuz as we're speaking, or just prior to our conversation here. But I think it's so important to have perspectives like yours and insights like yours. So those of us that don't have a complete or fulsome understanding of what's happening here can better analyze and form more informed opinions on it. And I am so grateful for that. So thank you to the 3 of you.
Thank you.
Real Talkers, if I know anything about you, I know that this will get you thinking. And I know that many of you have thoughts to share as well. You can do that in a number of ways. Of course, we'll get into our live chat in just a moment, powered by Park Power. Approximately 95% of you will watch or listen to this after the fact. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment there. If you're listening on Spotify, you can also leave a comment there. And our Real Talk email inbox is always open. That's talk@RyanJasperson.com. More in a moment. It is March 11th, the day we're recording this episode, and that's a big day for the Full House Lottery. That's because at midnight Mountain Time tonight, the 11th of March, the bonus deadline hits. You can learn more at fullhouse.ca. We've been sharing with you the details of the Full House Lottery for several weeks now. An incredible cause benefiting, of course, the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation and the University Hospital Foundation. Well, the reason that you want to get your tickets before midnight strikes on March 11th is because you will still qualify for that bonus prize, a $125,000 Go Auto voucher. That can be applied toward the vehicle of your dreams if you're already driving the vehicle of your dreams, or you could use the cash instead. You can walk away with $100,000. They also include, by the way, a $1,000 Dadco voucher, so your favorite little passenger can cruise around in their own battery-powered ride. I absolutely love those things. And don't forget, I'm just talking to you about the bonus deadline. There's 4 grand prizes this year, including the Legacy Signature Dream Home, valued at nearly $2.5 million. That also comes with $50,000 cash. They're going to pay your property taxes for quite some time when you win that one. They've got the Dream Haul, that Ford F-150 and a Moomba boat, or $200,000 cash as well. And of course, as you order early, you have a chance to win more as you win big and change lives. You can read the full package at fullhouse.ca. Order your tickets today, or you can directly link via our show notes on the podcast on YouTube. And for those of you watching the live stream right now, check the live chat, a direct link there to support the Full House Lottery. Of course, a big part of those funds is going to benefit the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation, and we've been so proudly partnering with them through 2025-26 as they celebrate 125 years. You can check out royalalex.org to learn more about how donors have been making the difference at the Royal Alexandra Hospital. And their team, their communications team, is doing an amazing job sharing the personal stories on how your support for the Royal Alex is benefiting care there. I encourage you to read Stories with Heart, Beating the Odds. That's Bob's story. Bob Stengel says he doesn't remember much about the day that his heart stopped. Normal day, just like any other, but then, of course, everything went sideways. Bob's still here to share his story, courtesy of the incredible cardiac care at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation. Check out royalalex.org to learn more on that. If you are the family member or the business leader that's in charge of ensuring that your family, maybe your company, your organization, or your association is on the right path when it comes to wealth and investing, when it comes to retirement planning, when it comes to succession planning, you're going to want to check out North Road Investment Council at northroadic.com. Led by Marshall McAllister and Kerry Williams, North Road acknowledges that life's financial journey doesn't always follow a straight path. Corey was on the show just a couple of weeks ago talking about how AI is disrupting markets and having an impact on investments. That's what they do. They partner with discerning families, foundations, associations, to provide expert navigation through the complexities of wealth accumulation and investment advisory services for clients across Canada. A special incentive for Real Talkers, because you're hearing about North Road on the show. Even if you have a current investment advisor, North Road offers a second set of eyes, and they can do this on an hourly basis. You don't necessarily have to bring all your business over to them right away, although I suspect that may be where this winds up. And if you mention Real Talk when you reach out to them at northroadic.com, you'll be extended a discounted rate from the team at North Road Investment Council. My thanks to the incredible audience members that have been joining us through this conversation with Pegah, Nooran, and Reza. Remarkable stuff, Johnny. We typically say to guests like this on roundtables like this, prepare for 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how the conversation goes. But obviously so much ground to cover. Incredible personal perspectives and conversation driven by those in our live chat. There's a lot to process in a conversation like this. Yeah, it's wild. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting here thinking as Nooran is describing what it would have been like as a young girl, 10 years old, as her entire world changes in Iran, how you would process that as a child, how you would process that as a parent. I saw some comments in our chat. They've long since disappeared, and I apologize, but people talking about friends of theirs or community members who had moved to Canada right around that time as parents were making the very difficult decision to move their family halfway around the world to escape the exact scenario that we've seen over the past 40 years or so. I mean, to try to walk a mile in these shoes, it's really unbelievable.
Yeah.
We also want to encourage people, of course, as you hear conversations like this, and as you process it through your own lens, people will come at this from different angles. Some of you will point out quite fairly that we didn't even touch on pretty significant issues. And of course, we remind you that these conversations continue as well. There's a lot to talk about. I saw a suggestion from folks pointing out that it's important to get political scientists on here or to get industry experts on here to share their perspectives as well and to share their thoughts. And I will remind you, of course, we have in previous episodes, and you can always find those wherever you get your podcasts or on our YouTube channel. You'll see conversations about the economic implications, the market implications, the global security implications, and the like. We also wanted to give you a heads up that coming up on our next episode of Real Talk, that'll be on Thursday, the 12th. We'll be speaking with Thomas Juneau, who's a professor at the University of Ottawa with a specific focus on the Middle East, including Iran and Yemen, a former Department of National Defense analyst who, of course, has remarkable insights on security and intelligence. So a bit of a different focus when Professor Thomas Juneau joins us in the next episode of the show. How about to something a little lighter? How about to something more celebratory? Every Wednesday, in partnership with our friends at Tourism Jasper, we shine a light on Jasper National Park and the incredible memories that are being made out there by visitors from across the country and around the world. And today, in this edition of MyJasper Memories, we celebrate the advent, it's almost here, about the Jasper Pride and Ski Festival. As we're talking to you about it, you can check out jasperpride.ca. If you've already heard enough and you need to book your tickets, you need to make your plans to get out to Jasper. That's where you can get more information and get your journey started. That's jasperpride.ca. I don't know, something about Jasper just sticks with you. We talk about it every week. Sometimes, it's the mountains, of course, the kind that stop you mid-sentence because the view just steals your attention, and there's nothing like seeing the wildlife, the elk that are crossing the road, or the goats or the sheep that are oftentimes there licking off the salt and welcoming you to the park. Maybe it's just that unmistakable feeling when you arrive in Jasper. We see it from our dogs when they're riding in the back seat. We roll the windows down as we're rolling into the park, and their heads automatically go out to capture that fresh mountain air. In Jasper, life slows down just enough to allow you to breathe a little bit deeper. And of course, Jasper has been, for so many Canadians, where incredible memories are made. And to every spring, when it comes to making memories, this celebration adds something extra. The Jasper Pride and Ski Festival returns this April for 10 days of incredible energy in the Canadian Rockies. We're talking April 10th to 19th of 2026. This isn't just any Pride Festival. This is the only Pride Ski Week in the Canadian Rockies, bringing visitors, as mentioned, from across Canada and around the world for a celebration of community, adventure, and inclusion. You can spend the morning carving turns at Marmot Basin, the sun hitting your face, and then you can hit town, head in for live entertainment, brunch with friends, or of course one of the festival's signature parties later that night. And one of the highlights every year is that Proud Peaks Parade. The skiers carrying a massive pride flag down the mountain while everybody cheers from the slopes below. It is colorful, it is joyful, and it is pure Jasper. Now, Jasper's built a well-deserved reputation as a place where people from all walks of life can feel welcome, and that welcoming spirit is on full display every spring. This year, it's April 10th to 19th of 2026. So whether you've been going to Jasper for your entire life, or maybe you're looking for an excuse to plan your very first trip to the Rockies, here it is. Fresh mountain air, great skiing, incredible people, and a celebration that reminds us all how powerful it is when community comes together. I'm showing you the event calendar right now. If you're watching on screen, if you're listening to the podcast, check it out yourself at jasperpride.ca. That's the Jasper Pride and Ski Festival, April 10th to 19th of 2026. MyJasper Memories is proudly presented every Wednesday right here on Real Talk by our incredible friends at Tourism Jasper. As we wrap this episode of the show, we remind you that the most powerful thing that you can do to help us grow our reach and to make sure important messages like we heard today reach as many people as possible is to tell your friends about it. Share it on your social media channels. Leave a comment on an episode. Even a simple like goes a long way. These people take big risks to talk to us around the table today. Let's show them how much we appreciate it. I know one thing for sure. We appreciate you, Real Talkers. We'll do it all again in 22 hours.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton, member emerita Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.